Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new around here, my name is Amanda and this is my channel, Amanda's Daily Dish. So if you guys have been with me for a while, you know that I do all sorts of like mommy lifestyle, cooking, cleaning videos, stuff like that. In the past, I've done a lot of meal planning videos where I'm showing what I'm doing for the week for food wise and stuff like that. And then in the past couple of weeks, I've been showing you guys some meal prep, and that has helped our family like tremendously, especially because we're so heavily involved in sports. So I thought this would be a great video to put together for you guys where I'm showing you what we're going to be eating for the whole week. I've planned out a whole week's worth of meals and I'm going to do a ton of prep for that tonight. So I'm going to show you guys what we're going to be eating and how I'm going to put this all together for the week so that we are organized and everything is ready to go. For those of you who are new here, make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe down below so you guys don't miss any of my future videos. I'm going to go ahead and get started right away because it's really late around here right now. I'm going to show you guys what I have for the menu plan and just get cooking. Alrighty, so here is my meal plan. This is Sunday through Saturday. I am going to be preparing 7 days worth of meals. Now in this video, I think I end up doing 6 of them. The last one on there is a burrito pie, and I will not be making that ahead because you can't really make that ahead. It's going to end up being pretty soggy and sloppy. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the meals. The first one up is Irish chicken and dumplings. This one is a family favorite. I've been making it for a long time. This recipe you can find from allrecipes.com. I will make sure I link below in the description box all of the recipes that I use. So first up, I am going to be dicing up my carrots into little bite-sized pieces. So this recipe is actually a stovetop soup recipe. I end up just converting it into a slow cooker recipe and it works just fine that way too. So here I'm just going to be chopping up my carrots. I'm doubling the recipe here, so I'm just chopping them all up and tossing them into the slow cooker. Okay, so I'm moving on to the potatoes. I just love potatoes in my soups and stews, so I do use a little bit more than the 4 potatoes that the recipe called for. I am dicing them up into little cubes. Again, you want them to be easy to scoop onto your spoon when you're eating your stew. So being that we are a really busy family, our kids are really heavily involved in sports, so our evenings are usually a write-off. Having these meals planned ahead and mostly prepared ahead of time is an absolute lifesaver. I know it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of cooking in the very first couple of days that you decide to do it, but it makes the rest of your week just so much easier and it saves you a whole bunch of money too. Now I'm just washing up my celery. I'm just going to make sure all of the dirt is outside of the inside part there where it kind of gets caught inside. I like to rub my finger up and down in there to make sure it all gets out. Then I cut it down lengthwise and then I'm going to dice it up from there. And I am filming this video really late at night. I've already put the kids to bed. They've been sleeping for a while. And I made sure the kitchen was all clean and everything was tidied up because I like to have a free and clear workspace. So here I'm just going to be chopping up the onion. The onion I'm going to leave in a little bit bigger pieces because I want to make sure the kids can pick them out because my kids don't really like onions in their food. So we left them nice and big so they're easy to spot and then they can just pick them out of the soup. Now the chicken has already been prepped, so I'm just dicing it up and I'm going to throw that right into the crock pot as well. And I don't know about you guys, but I know it kind of seems like a pain in the butt to stay up late and do your cooking and cleaning, but I also find it really relaxing. Like it is the one time of day where I get absolutely peace and quiet in the house. And all I can hear is myself thinking and myself preparing and planning for the week. I don't really get to do that during the daytime because it is so busy with the kids that I actually really enjoy doing this. So here you can see I'm using 4 cans of cream of chicken soup. Do not make the mistake that I did. I used the no name brand here. Definitely stick with the Campbell's. I noticed that my soup was a little bit more runny than usual using the no name brand, where I don't get that with the Campbell's. So stick with the better brand. It will turn out way better for you in the long run. I did decide to double this recipe because we do have a large family and very active boys. So I am just going to be putting in 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So here I'm just going to make sure that that soup base is all mixed up. I'm going to pour it over the meat and the veggies, and then I'm just going to put the lid on and turn the slow cooker on. If you are not planning on eating this basically within the next day or two after you've prepared it, you can just take the insert from the slow cooker and pop it in your fridge, and then go ahead and put it back on the slow cooker element and turn it on when you are ready to make it for that day that you're planning to eat it. This recipe for the pumpkin cream cheese swirl muffins is to die for. I highly recommend you guys try this. It's a really simple recipe and it tastes like gourmet, like from some sort of a yummy bakery. So I'm definitely going to be making these again. And for this recipe, you'll need some eggs, some brown sugar, some flour, some canned pumpkin, vanilla, pumpkin pie spice, some sugar, some baking soda, and some canola oil. So first up, I'm just opening up this can of pure pumpkin. You will need 15 ounces. So I'm just going to scoop that into this bowl. And here I'll be adding 1 cup of granulated sugar and half a cup of brown sugar. And now I'm just going to combine that and make sure that it is all mixed up thoroughly. Now I've added 2 eggs and I'm going to be adding half a cup of canola oil. The recipe calls for vegetable oil, but all I had was canola oil on hand, so that worked out just fine as well. Add a tablespoon of pure vanilla extract. Now this vanilla, my friend got this for me from Mexico. It is like the real stuff and it is amazing. So now you're just going to combine the ingredients really well, mix it all together, make sure it's all combined thoroughly, there's no lumps in there. And here I'm just going to add a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. I only had about half a tablespoon, so I'm just adding a little bit of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg in there to kind of make up the whole tablespoon. Now you'll need a teaspoon of baking soda and you will whisk away and make sure that that is all combined. And as I was editing this video, I realized that I think I forgot to add the salt, which was only half a teaspoon, so I really didn't notice it at all when I was eating the muffins, so you really don't even need to add the salt. And now you will start combining the 2 bowls. So you add the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients a little bit at a time, and you don't want to overwork the batter because your muffins will turn out really tough and not light and fluffy. So that's what I did here. So now that the batter is all combined, I'm going to go ahead and get the muffin cups ready. So after I made these muffins, I realized I could really use a really good like muffin batter scooper. I think a lot of people use ice cream scoops, but I saw some really neat gadgets on Amazon. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and order a muffin scooper off of there, and I will let you guys know how that works once I get one. But in the meantime, if any of you guys have one that you really like, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below, because there are quite a few different ones on Amazon and I'm not sure which one to get. And I'm so excited to be using the Christmas themed muffin cups. Everything Christmassy is starting to come out. So in this video, I kind of have a mixture of fall and Christmas. As you can see, my tea towels in the background are still fall, but I'm so excited to start getting decorating for Christmas. Now that those muffin tins are all filled up, I'm gonna go ahead and make the cream cheese swirl mix. So you're gonna need 1 block of cream cheese softened. So I went ahead and I softened this up in the microwave because it was still pretty hard and you need it pretty soft in order to work with it. So while that's in the microwave, I'm just gonna go ahead and load a few of these dirty dishes into the dishwasher because I wanna make sure I leave this kitchen clean once I'm all done. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my fork to smooth out the cream cheese and make it nice and creamy. And then once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and separate the egg yolk from the egg white. And then I'm gonna take the egg yolk and put it into the cream cheese and I'm gonna combine it. And now you are ready to take the cream cheese mixture, put a little dollop on top of each little tin of muffin batter. And then once I have these all filled, I'm gonna go ahead and use a Q-tip and then just swirl it all around and get the cream cheese all mixed up in there. This already looks so amazing. I cannot wait to see how these come out of the oven. So these are going to bake on 375 for about 18 to 20 minutes. Okie dokie, so while those muffins are baking, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my Bolognese sauce. Now this recipe I found from pioneerwoman.com. I've made this quite a few times and this is the best Bolognese sauce recipe that I've come across. It is super, super delicious. I highly recommend you guys try this one. So I'm going to go ahead and start making this. And the nice thing about this meal is you can go ahead and make the Bolognese sauce a few days ahead of time, keep it in the fridge, and all you have to do is boil up your noodles when you are going to be using this meal. It is so, so simple and so delicious. So first I'm going to get started with grating the carrots. And this recipe calls for red onion as well, so I'm going to go ahead and add a red onion. I'm going to go a little bit easier on the red onion because my kids don't like it, and I'm going to have to sneak this into the recipe. Alright, so the muffins are ready. I'm going to go ahead and pull those out and get them on a cooling rack, and then I will continue with my Bolognese sauce. Alright, so you're going to want to heat up your olive oil in a really big saucepan. That way you are going to make sure you're not splashing when you're cooking. You're going to add your carrots into there and you're going to saute those. And I was just going to throw my onions right into the pot, but then I was worried that the kids would notice the onion chunks, so I thought I better go ahead and puree the red onion so I can sneak it in there a little bit better without the kids having a freak out that I put onions in the Bolognese sauce. And I'm going to go ahead and add a whole bunch of garlic into this recipe. You can add as much as you want. For me, you can never have enough garlic. I think I ended up putting 5 cloves of garlic into the sauce. This already looks so delicious. I'm just gonna get this cooking and warmed up and sauteed a little bit and get the flavors all mixed up together. And I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 packages of ground beef. I honestly don't know how many pounds are here. I'm assuming maybe 3 or 4. I've got 2 of the small packages I picked up at the grocery store. I don't really pay attention how much I buy on weight. I just kind of eyeball it because we're not really huge on eating meat. Like, we eat meat, but it doesn't have to be like a whole ton. I'd way rather have more vegetables in the sauce than meat. And here I'm adding 2 tablespoons of oregano. And here I'm adding 1 tablespoon of basil. The recipe does call for 2 tablespoons. I have no idea why I only added 1. I'm thinking it's because it was like 3 a.m. by this point and I was like super tired. I thought I was doing a good job, but I missed out on that tablespoon of basil. But you know what? I could not even tell in the recipe when I was eating it. It tasted delicious anyhow, so it really doesn't matter. And now I'm just going to use my pastry cutter to mash up the meat, because if you guys have seen my previous cooking videos, you know that I like to get my ground beef really fine, and I use my pastry cutter to do that. Here I'm going to go ahead and add the can of tomato paste right into the center of the saucepan. You basically make a little well in there and you heat up the tomato paste. And now I'm just going to take my wooden spoon and I'm going to start combining the tomato paste into the ground beef. You knock on my window, and 1 tablespoon of the sauce that I can never pronounce, Worcestershire. No matter how many times I try to practice it, I just cannot retain that word. It is so bizarre. And here I am adding 2 cans of diced tomatoes. And I'm just going to mix that all up, and this already smells so amazing. And in the last part of this recipe, I go ahead and I add 1 cup of milk. That just makes the sauce look so much more rich. I am supposed to add the red wine at this point as well, but I didn't have any on hand. So what I'm going to do is, when I go ahead to serve this recipe, I will just heat it up in the pot and I will add my wine at that point and then just cook it down for about half an hour. I'm so proud of myself. I've got 2 dinners ready to go here, as well as the muffins. It smells so delicious in here. I wish I could go ahead and keep cooking, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn in for the night and I'm going to keep going in the morning. So the next part of this video is going to be the next day. And I'm just going to toss in 2 bay leaves. That's not in the recipe, but I really do like adding bay leaves to my bolognese. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stove, and I'm just going to leave this overnight, which is basically only 3 hours, because now we are the next day and I put the bolognese sauce in the fridge, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make the easiest ever orange chicken. So for this recipe, you will need to have your chicken breast ready to go. So I've gone ahead and I've cleaned it and I've patted it dry, and I'm going to go ahead and dice that all up. Now for this recipe, I did double it because it definitely was not going to be enough to feed our whole family. So I'm just going to go ahead and dice up the chicken into bite-sized pieces. Now here you're going to want to dust the chicken with cornstarch and then sprinkle it with some salt and pepper before I go ahead and saute it. And here I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of oil into the pan. I would have liked to added the oil first and then preheated the oil before adding the chicken, but I just didn't do it that way this time. I should have put the chicken into the bowl and then coated it in the cornstarch and salt and pepper, but it turned out just fine, so this way is perfectly fine as well. Now I am making this recipe a little bit different than the recipe calls for. I'm just doing some modifications to make it easier for meal prep. The recipe does say that you put the raw chicken into the crock pot and cook it for an hour and a half, and then you drain the juices and then you add the sauce. But for myself, I want to pre-cook the chicken in the pan and then put it in the crock pot with the sauce on top, so that way I can just cook the chicken with the sauce for a shorter period of time when I'm ready to use this recipe. So first I'm just going to add the barbecue sauce into the bowl. I'm having a hard time getting the barbecue sauce out of the container. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the orange marmalade and the soy sauce. And now I'm going to be adding the crushed garlic into the sauce, and I'm going to mix that all up. So I figured that broccoli would be the perfect side dish to have with this meal. My kids absolutely love broccoli, especially when I prepare it roasted in the oven. I just toss it in a little bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, and they like it really crispy. So I roast it until it almost like browns at the tips a little bit. Here I'm just gonna I don't know what you call it, chop up the broccoli or break off the little pieces so that they're a little bit smaller and not like the gigantic hunks that you can't fit into your mouth. So I'm just going to do that, put it in the strainer, rinse it off in the sink, and then it will be ready to roast in the oven. But since I'm not actually roasting it right now, I'm just going to put it into this dish and cover it up and place that in the fridge. That way it is ready to go for when I am ready to roast it. I should probably pick up some larger Ziploc bags because I could also store it in that as well. All right, so the chicken is nice and crispy. I'm just going to transfer it into the crock pot dish here, and then I will go ahead and cover it with the sauce. Once the sauce hits the chicken here, it just smells so good. I want to eat it right now, but of course this is not for tonight's dinner. This dish is just about ready. I'm just going to go ahead and mix it up and make sure the sauce is covering all of the chicken. Then I can go ahead and cover it up and put that in the fridge. And all I'm going to do when I'm ready to make it is I'm just going to pop it into the slow cooker for probably like 3 to 4 hours on low, and then it'll be good to go. Now next up on the menu, I've got my Irish beef stew recipe. Now this one is a beef stew that you don't put the potatoes into the stew, you serve it over mashed potatoes, which is so delicious. My kids love mashed potatoes, so this turns out absolutely perfect. It's not just plain boring old beef stew. You serve it over mashed potatoes, so it's kind of like mashed potatoes and gravy, except you've got all the veggies and goodness all over on top. So first I'm just browning the beef cubes. We seasoned it with salt and pepper and a little bit of flour, and then we will just make sure that all the sides are browned. While I have the beef going over there on the stove, I've got my carrots diced up into little bite-sized pieces here. I'm going to go ahead and toss that into the crock pot container. I actually have an extra crock pot container, which turns out perfect because that way I can have 2 dishes ready to go, and I can just switch them in and out of the crock pot as I cook. And here I am just going to dice up some garlic because garlic makes everything better. Now I'm just going to throw the garlic in with the carrots. I've also now added the beef into the crock pot container, and I'm just adding the seasoning. I'm adding some thyme and some bay leaves. And then you don't really have to add too much more for flavoring because the vegetables add a lot of flavor in this. I'm just going to add a couple of cups of beef broth in here. And now I'm just melting some butter and adding some flour into it so I can thicken up the gravy. Now this recipe is from laurenslatest.com. I think I already mentioned this earlier in the video, but I will be linking all of the recipes down below in the description box. This recipe also turned out to be fantastic, so I highly recommend you guys try this one as well, especially if you're a beef stew lover and you like hearty things like mashed potatoes. Alright, so I've got my thickener ready, and I'm just going to go ahead and add that into the crock pot container here. I'm just going to mix it up with that broth that's already in there, and this will thicken up even more as it cooks in the crock pot. You guys, this smells and looks absolutely amazing. Now I'm just mixing up all the vegetables here. The only thing that I am missing is the green peas. I will not be adding those until just before you serve it because you don't want those green peas smashed up in there. Alright, on to the next recipe. Aren't you guys so excited? This one is sheet pan pork tenderloin and roasted potatoes. This one is super awesome because everything goes onto one pan and then you go ahead and roast it in the oven. Alright, so this recipe is actually so easy and so delicious. All you have to do is you're going to add your brown sugar into a bowl. Now I'm adding half a cup here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add my garlic. I'm a little bit lazy right now. I don't feel like cleaning my garlic crusher, so I'm just going to go ahead and dice it up on the kitchen counter. And here I'm just eyeballing the soy sauce. I'm figuring it is about 2 tablespoons there, so I'm just going to toss the whole darn container of soy sauce in there. Why not? I'm just going to eyeball this one too, so I just added the balsamic vinegar. Now I'm going to add the crushed red pepper flakes. Now we don't really like our food spicy, so I'm adding the tiniest little bit
into the sauce just to give it a little hint of flavor. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the paprika. You can use the smoked paprika. I haven't found mine yet. I think it's still packed in a bin. I know you guys know that we've been struggling to get everything unpacked and organized because we're in reno mode around here. So I did find the regular paprika and that worked just as well. And you're going to want to just whisk, whisk, whisk and make sure that there are no clumps left in this sauce because you don't want any like flavor pockets full of spices in your sauce on top of your pork tenderloin.
I know with you I have to learn my lessons. You go up when I go down. You see clear when I go blind.
Now once you pour your marinade / sauce all over the pork tenderloin, you're just going to want to take your fork and punch a whole bunch of holes in the pork tenderloin and flip it over. That way your meat marinades really nicely, and when you go to cook it, it's going to be so flavorful and delicious. And this is something you can totally just throw into some Ziploc bags and freeze it, and then it'll be ready to go once you've thawed it out. Now we're going to serve this with a salad and those roasted potatoes. I'm obviously not going to dice those up until I put them on the pan. Alrighty, so lastly on our menu is creamy tomato Parmesan pasta. You guys, this was fantastic. It is such a good recipe. Now for this one, I'm going to use my Alfredo recipe that I've been going back to year after year. It is tried and true. It is from allrecipes.com. I will have that link down below. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by melting my butter. Now that the butter is melted in the saucepan, I'm just going to take chunks of cream cheese and put that in the saucepan as well so that that can melt. I've added my garlic powder and I'm just going to whisk away. Now this was a toughie to whisk because I didn't use a saucepan that was big enough, so I made quite a little bit of a mess with the splash here. So you know, that's cooking. What do you do? And now I'm just going to add my milk slowly to the saucepan. I'm going to be very careful not to spill again. And I'm just going to whisk away, whisk, 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 until everything is nicely combined. And this is my favorite part. I'm just going to go ahead and add my Parmesan cheese into here. So I just take little handfuls of the cheese and I put it in the saucepan, and then I'm going to take my whisk and once again keep whisking until the cheese melts and gets combined and blended quite nicely into the sauce. And then you can go ahead and add your pepper and then just keep whisking until everything is nice and smooth. And that is it for the easy Alfredo recipe. It is so good.
All right guys, so I've finished most of the meal prepping. I just made the Alfredo sauce. That's all done. Now it's time to clean up this kitchen because most of the cooking is done for the week. So that is super fantastic. There's really not that many dishes. So I'm just gonna get those done and then off we go to hockey practice again. Surprise, surprise.
Okay guys, this is it. I am so proud of all the meal prepping I've done. We're going to be so ready to tackle this week. So I've got my Irish beef stew there. I've got my Bolognese sauce, my Alfredo sauce. My pork tenderloin is marinating. My orange chicken is ready to go in the crock pot with the broccoli over there. And everything else I've put away in the fridge already. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tidy up the last few dishes here before I head out for the evening. Alrighty, dishes are all done and I'm just going to get this dishwasher going. That way when I get home tonight I can just unload it. And I'm just going to go ahead and clean off our kitchen stovetop there because I made a little bit of a mess when I was making the Alfredo sauce. I'm not going to be able to do a perfect job because we are in a rush to get to practice on time, but at least it doesn't look like a sloppy disaster. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that my kitchen counters are all clean and wiped down so that when I get home, everything is completely finished. I've got all the meals in the fridge, the kitchen is clean, and we are ready to tackle the rest of the week. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. It was a little bit different than my usual cleaning. I hope you guys follow some of these recipes and try them out. Let me know how you like them if you did, because I loved all of them. Otherwise, I wouldn't have shared them with you guys. I would have told you that they didn't turn out. But just make sure you guys are subscribed down below so you guys don't miss any of my future videos. And I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Bye!